Hey, sixth graders, it's Mrs. Zimmerman here, and we've got another math lesson. We are doing another geometry lesson, and actually this is your last one before we take the test on geometry. So what are we doing today? Okay, we're going back to rectangular prisms. Okay, remember rectangular prisms have a top and a bottom, and then the four sides, right, all rectangles. And we did surface area of this shape. Today we're going to do volume, okay? So volume talks about how much space it fills up, what we could put in it, how much space is in there on the inside. So like if I were to open this, like what's the volume? Everything that could fit in there, right? Like you could find the volume, like my water bottle, right? On the inside, what's the volume? How much water would it hold? That's the kind of thing that we're going to be doing today. So we're going to start, and I actually did some measuring, and we're going to find the volume of my fish tank. I know y'all love my fish. So I'm going to head to the front, and I'm going to teach you how to do volume. So my fish tank here, you can see that I have measured that the length is 20 inches. So if we're looking at my fish tank, length would be this distance right here. Okay, so the length I know is 20 inches. And then I did some measuring for this distance right here, this kind of the side, and that is 10 inches. And height, we know, goes from the top to the bottom. And the height of my fish tank is 13 inches, okay? Once you have all three of these measurements, you can find the volume. How much water is in my fish tank? What does it take up? How much space is in there? And the formula for volume is volume equals length times width times height, okay? So this is actually pretty easy. We just look at the numbers that we have and we plug them in. So my length, we know, is 20. So I'm going to do 20 times 10 times my height, which is 13, okay? I'm going to do 20 times 10, which is 200. And then 200 times 13 is 2,600. Now, the label, okay, is going to be inches, right, because we're measuring in inches. And actually, it's going to be inches cubed, which means 3. Can you even see that? There it is, inches cubed. Because what are we doing? We took inches times inches times inches. So inches times itself 3 times would be inches cubed, and that's where I get my label from. So the volume here would be 2,600 inches cubed. And that's literally it. Volume of rectangular prisms is so simple, okay? So just again, so you know, volume equals length times width times height. So let's start with an example, okay? Here is my prism. I'm going to write down the formula, length times width times height, okay? Then my length is 2 times my width, which is 7, times the height, which is how tall it is, which is 16. Now, think about this. We're multiplying all three numbers together. And I know multiplication is commutative, meaning I can switch the order and I'm going to get the same answer. So is it okay if I would have put one of these in the wrong spot by accident? Yes, that doesn't matter, okay? You just put them in there and then we start to multiply. 2 times 7 is 14. 14 times 16 is 224 inches cubed, because there's 3 of them, all right? And this is pretty basic. These are just these 3 numbers, plug them in and multiply, okay? Now we're gonna have one with a fraction in it, but we're gonna do the same thing. Volume equals length times width times height, okay? So I'm just gonna plug in my numbers. 9 times 1/2 times 12. Okay, now don't let this fraction freak you out, because what are we going to do? How do we turn whole numbers into fractions? Just put them over 1. And how do you multiply fractions? Straight across. So 9 times 1 is 9. 9 times 12 is 108. So I multiply straight across. And then on the bottom, I do 1 times 2, 2. 2 times 1 is 2. So now I have 108 over 2, which fraction is just a division problem. So if I divide that, I'm going to get 54 centimeters cubed. And that would be the volume for that prism. Let's try one that's got all fractions. Okay, it says units here. Let's just pretend they're inches, just to make it easier for us. There we go. Okay, so write it down. Volume equals length times width times height. Now, I just wanted to point something out I thought of. You see how I'm making a cursive L right here? That's because if I do just a lowercase l, it would look like a 1. So I'm using cursive L for that reason, just in case you're wondering. Okay, now here we go. My length is 3/4 times my width is 3 over 2 times my height over here, which is 2 over 3. Multiplying fractions means you just multiply straight across. Okay? So 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 2 is 18. And then, what's 4 times 2? 8. 8 times 3, 24. Okay? Now that fraction is not in simplest form. So in order to do that, I'm going to find a common factor that I can divide by. And I know that 6 goes into both of these numbers. So I'm going to divide by 6. 18 divided by 6 is 3. And 24 divided by 6 is 4. That cannot go any smaller. So my final answer is 3/4 inches cubed. Okay, we're going to do one more. That's a fraction just to make sure we get it. Okay, so here we go. Volume equals length times width times height. So my length is 3/4 times 1/2 times 1/2. And we're going to multiply straight across. 3 times 1 times 1 is just 3. And then we do 4 times 2, which is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. Can 3 over 16 go any smaller? No. So we do meters cubed, and that's the answer. Okay? So I think you're probably getting the hang of this by now. Just multiply all three numbers together, get it to simplest form. So the next thing we're going to do is find the missing dimension. All right? So you can see I've got a prism over here. We want to find the missing dimension if the volume of the prism is 60 inches cubed. Okay? And look, you can see that we have a height of 3, a width of 2, so we want to know what's the length. Step 1, write your formula. Volume equals length times width times height. Okay? Now, what's the volume? They told us it's 60. So we're going to put a 60 where the V is. Do we know the length? No. So I'm just going to put an L. Okay? And then my width is 2. And my height is 3. So then I just plug those numbers in. And this is just an algebraic equation. We just have to get L all by itself. So what I'm going to do first is do the 2 times 3. And what's 2 times 3? It's 6. Now how do I get that L all by itself? What's the opposite of times by 6? Divide by 6. Divide by 6. Okay, my 6's cancel. And so my length equals, what's 60 divided by 6? That's easy. 10. And my label is inches. My length is 10 inches. Okay. And if you ever wanted to check your answer just to see if it's right, pretend there's a 10 here. Okay, what's 10 times 3? 30. What's 30 times 2? 60. So we know we got the right answer. Okay, let's try another one like that. Okay, here we go. If the volume of the prism, I did it again, prism is 240, what is the missing dimension going to be? Okay, so we've got a height, we've got a length, we're just looking for the width. And again, it doesn't really matter where you put the numbers because we're just multiplying all three of them together anyways. Okay, so my volume is 240. So I'm going to put that right here. Equals my length, which is 10, times my height, which is 8, times, oh, I messed, we'll just do x, right? Because that's what they have. So we'll do 10 times 8 times x. And here we go. First thing we're going to do is 10 times 8, which is 80. Bring down everything else. Okay, and then what's the opposite of a times by 80? Divide by 80 on both sides. So when I do that, these 80s cancel, and my missing dimension is going to be 3 meters, right? And then if you plug that in, you would have everything that you need to know. You'll get the right answer, and you're good to go. So that's all I have for you. Finding volume, length times height times width. Put it in simplest form, and make sure your label is whatever the unit is, and then that you cube it. Okay? All right. See you next time.